Thursday, 5:40 p.m. The Sorensens live on the eastern side of the street, right near the corner of Ocean Street and Pleasant Avenue. There's 4 of them: Mum, Dad, daughter Cassie, and son Ken. Ken Niles and I hung out together every day between the ages of 12 and 15, but after we turned 15, I was forbidden to play with him. No one told me why, but I'm smart enough to know it was something to do with a sudden change in his personality. He went from happy fat boy to sullen beast in less than a year. He recently completed a stint in prison for burglary, but I've had little to do with him since his return to Pleasant Avenue society. I've honked him a few times as I passed him in the car, but we haven't socialised. I wasn't sure whether to invite him to the party, but since I'm dealing with the type of people who run an illegal casino, it makes sense to have someone with criminal experience on my side. I'll feel safer if I know Ken is in my corner. The Sorensens' front veranda is so badly chipped you can see the rusty reinforced steel inside the concrete. There's a mound of smelly sand near the fence too. I recall wrestling with Ken in it when I was 13 and hitting my head on a submerged brick. I suppose someone at the Sorensens had an idea about doing renovations. They ordered the sand, but work never progressed beyond its delivery. There's a ladder and old planks of wood leaning against the side of the house, and rusty tools are scattered about the place. I knock on the door. Their dog, which is inside, goes ballistic. It's as if it's trying to eke through the wood to get at me. I've never seen their dog. I don't think it's ever been for a walk. I just hope Ken's father doesn't answer the door. He frightens me. When I accidentally broke Ken's slot car once, his dad told me I couldn't come back into their house until I bought a new one. I purposely didn't buy one so I wouldn't have to go back in their house again. The other bizarre thing I recall, and this may be unreliable, occurred when unbreakable plates first came on the market. I remember Mr. Sorensen standing in their kitchen, throwing an unbreakable plate onto the floor, trying to prove to his wife that it could be broken. All I know is it was more fun to play at Ken's place when his father wasn't home, and nothing's happened to change my opinion of him. Thankfully, Mrs. Sorensen answers the door. She has a droopy, sad quality. She reminds me of the Mama Bear on the Bugs Bunny show. She doesn't fully open the door because their dog is trying to squeeze its head through the gap and nip my legs. Her voice is friendly despite the maniacal barking going on at calf level. "Is Ken home?" I yell over the tumult. The dog is so intent on biting me that Mrs. Sorensen has to bend down to restrain it. "He's at footy practice," she bellows, looking at me as if to say, "Oh, I'm sorry about the dog." I try to pass an invite through the gap in the door, but this causes the crazed dog to move up to the next level of hysteria, so I ask her to mention the party to Ken in case I don't see him. I say goodbye and bid a hasty retreat. 6:05 p.m. Cochrane Oval is a typical suburban oval. Amenities block, white fence in a state of disrepair, 4 clusters of inadequate lights illuminating each corner of the ground and leaving the centre area relatively dark. It's nestled right in the pocket of the mountain range guarding our section of Australia's coastline. As twilight turns to night, the lights from the houses up on the ridge make it appear as if a massive ocean liner is docking. For a few measly hours, residents must feel as if they're going on a cruise, or at least welcoming strangers from far-off places. A game of tip football is in progress on the oval. There's much yelling, and even from where I'm standing, I can see steam pouring off the fatter blokes. Ken is not among them. I scan the oval until I detect a solitary figure wrapped in a space blanket sitting in the grandstand. Even in this dim light, I recognise Ken's white, porky face, but he's on the opposite side to me, so I have to walk halfway around the perimeter of the oval to reach him. I have one embarrassing moment when a football rolls past and some guy with no neck asks me if I can fetch it. My return kick comes off the side of my boot and I have to retrieve it again, much to everyone's delight. I pass it the second time to avoid double embarrassment. As I walk up the rickety grandstand, it reminds me of the time Ken and I won a competition run by the local newspaper. Our prize was a chance to meet the first grade players in the dressing rooms before a match. Neither of us had ever been under the grandstand before, so we were excited. Much to our disappointment, however, all we saw were a lot of grown men kneeling down, vomiting into toilets. I also remember feeling that this many men crammed into such a small space could only lead to trouble. I approach Ken, sit next to him, and say hello. He stares at me without moving his head. His left eye is like a red vent emitting a hideous noxious gas. There's no recognition of me in his gaze. I say hello again. This time he fixes on me more intently, as if I'm bugging him. Ken, it's me, Cindy. After a long pause he says the weirdest thing in the most bizarre sing-song way. If I get a run today, I'll headbutt him straight away. In the first scrum, I'll headbutt him some and I'll be in the team next week. I'll tell him his mother's a druggie. He'll stick up his head like a goose. And in the first scrum, I'll headbutt him some and I'll be in the team next week. Two things struck me in the 2 minutes I spent inviting Ken to my 21st. First, he's angry about something. Second, he spoke exclusively in rhyming couplets. Ken has clung to his dream for too long, and now he's unusual and hard to know.